Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into an intense and meaningful topic from the anime One Piece, slavery. This isn't just a background element or something to move the plot along. It's a theme that digs deep into issues of power, freedom, and injustice. What's interesting is how the creator of One Piece, Oda, takes a fictional world and uses it to reflect on real issues, especially the painful history of slavery in Africa. We're not just talking about the anime here. We'll explore how these stories portray actual historical events and how they connect to the struggles still happening in the world today. We'll analyze key moments in the series where slavery plays a central role and how it's depicted through characters like the Celestial Dragons, what it says about power dynamics and inequality. Before we dive into all this, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you're new here. We hope you've enjoyed our past videos. This topic is heavy but extremely important, and understanding it can give us a new perspective on the show we love and the world we live in. So let's get started and explore how One Piece takes us beyond fiction and into the heart of social justice. Let's go! In the world of One Piece, where the seas are full of adventures, the Celestial Dragons sit at the top of the social hierarchy. They live in their high towers, looking down on the rest of humanity like they're just bugs beneath their feet. They're not satisfied with wealth and power. They go even further. They own humans as slaves, choosing whoever they want to be their playthings, forgetting that these are people just like them, with beating hearts and souls dreaming of freedom. Slaves in this world are seen as mere puppets moved by the commands of their masters, and the world government doesn't dare to intervene. On the contrary, it supports this oppressive system, backing it with all its might, as if it's an integral part of nature. Here, we wonder, how did things get this bad? And why does the government turn a blind eye to this brutality? But as we delve deeper into this fictional world, we start to see chilling similarities with our historical reality. These stories remind us of days gone by when humans were enslaved based on their skin color or social class. Back then, slaves were bought and sold like goods in markets, treated not as human beings but as property of their masters. Just like in One Piece, those times were full of injustice and oppression. The Celestial Dragons take us back to those harsh days when power was in the hands of the few and the weak paid the price. And while this is a fictional story, it raises profound questions within us about the power of authority and its impact on humanity, and how history tends to repeat itself in one form or another in our worlds, whether fictional or real. Let's start by looking at the historical context of slavery. One of the most well-known examples is the transatlantic slave trade, where millions of Africans were forced to go to the Americas. These men, women, and even children were treated as property. They had no rights and were bought and sold like objects, often suffering brutal mistreatment from their masters. Slavery was justified by inhumane ideologies that deemed these people inferior simply because they belonged to a certain race. The whole system was designed to strip them of their humanity, with generations born into slavery knowing nothing but pain and suffering. It wasn't just about physical suffering. It was also about the psychological trauma that lasted for centuries. Families were torn apart, and people were reduced to mere tools for profit. This isn't too different from what we see in One Piece with the Celestial Dragons. They think they're superior to everyone else and use slaves for their entertainment. The high dragon mark is branded onto slaves as proof of their ownership. This reflects how slaves were also branded in the real world to show they were property of their masters. In both cases, the goal is the same: to strip a person of their dignity and humanity. In the world of One Piece, this practice shows just how much the Celestial Dragons despise others. To them, slaves are nothing more than tools to fulfill their desires, just numbers in a game of power. Their branding is nothing but a constant reminder that they are not free, but property of their masters, subjected to all kinds of humiliation and disrespect. This dynamic highlights the dark side of absolute power. The Celestial Dragons, with all their strength, think they're above the law and higher than humanity itself. This idea isn't far from reality, where colonial powers in the real world used similar methods to strip oppressed communities of their rights. Flags, brands, and symbols were used to assert the dominance of the powerful over the weak. The difference between these slaves in One Piece and those in our history isn't that big. All these individuals lost their freedom and dignity, while their masters thrived at their expense. Therefore, both One Piece and the real world tell the same story of injustice and reflect the inherent danger of ignoring humanity in the pursuit of power. However, there are still lessons to be learned. The stories we hear from the heroes of One Piece, like Luffy and his friends, urge us to rebel against this injustice and strive for freedom. They represent hope, strength, and the power to change. In the end, These tales remind us of the importance of defending justice and human dignity, because every person, regardless of their origin, deserves to be treated with humanity and respect. The effects of slavery don't just stop with the individuals who were enslaved. They've shaped entire cultures and societies. In the real world, slavery fueled economies, especially in the Americas. Cotton, sugar, these industries relied on the forced labor of enslaved Africans. This, in turn, created wealth for the slave-owning class, while keeping an entire race oppressed. The effects of this exploitation are still felt today in the form of systemic racism and inequality. You might be thinking now, slavery is a thing of the past, right? Unfortunately, that's not true. Modern slavery is still a huge issue, with over 40 million people trapped in various forms of slavery today. Human trafficking, forced labor, debt bondage, all of this is happening around us, even if we don't see it as clearly as in the past. So, how does the law deal with slavery today? On an international level, slavery is completely illegal. Article 4 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights states that no one shall be held in slavery or servitude. Laws like the Palermo Protocol exist to combat human trafficking and prosecute traffickers in an effort to eliminate the hidden networks that sustain modern slavery. But in one piece, the law doesn't protect the enslaved, it protects the enslavers. The celestial dragons are at the top of the hierarchy in the world, and their power allows them to operate above the law. No one dares to challenge them, not even the world government. It's a stark contrast to how laws work in the real world to combat slavery, but it also reminds us of how corruption can allow slavery to persist even when it's illegal. One interesting legal aspect is that in both worlds, those in power often exploit the system to maintain control. Whether it's the celestial dragons using their influence to enslave others, or corrupt officials in the real world turning a blind eye to human trafficking, the result is the same. The innocent suffer while the powerful remain in control. But we also find a glimmer of hope. In One Piece, there's brave resistance from the heroes who refuse to stay silent. Luffy and his crew represent the new generation challenging the status quo, fighting battles against oppressive powers and encouraging others to fight for their freedom. They seek not only to free those who are enslaved, but also to change the system that allows this injustice to continue. And in the real world, we need this kind of courage. As we continue to strive for justice, we must remember the importance of exposing corruption and advocating for the rights of the vulnerable. Real change can come from the collective efforts of individuals who challenge corruption and demand the enforcement of laws that protect everyone. The history of slavery teaches us harsh lessons, but the hope for change remains. By working together, we can be part of the movement that eradicates injustice and ensures these mistakes aren't repeated in the future. Let's draw inspiration from One Piece and strive harder to build a world where justice and dignity are a reality for all. Even though One Piece is a fictional story, the issue of slavery it portrays is very real. From forced labor to human trafficking, slavery still happens around us. But there are organizations worldwide fighting to end modern slavery, and they need our help. So what can we do? One way to help is to support organizations that fight human trafficking, rescue victims, and hold traffickers accountable. We can also make ethical choices when shopping by supporting brands that ensure their supply chains are free from forced labor. By raising awareness, like sharing this video, we can help others understand that slavery is still an ongoing issue today. Just as Luffy and his crew fight for freedom in One Piece, we can all be part of the battle against modern slavery. It's a big issue, but change starts with our awareness and taking action, even if it's small. In One Piece, slavery reflects both the dark realities of history and the ongoing struggles today. By understanding the connections between fiction and reality, we can appreciate the importance of fighting for human rights, no matter where we are. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit the like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more content where anime meets real-world issues. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.